Thank you, Jerry. We're going to start the meeting, guys, so everybody's here. Today is October 17. Time is over 2:30. We're going to do the canvas business first before we go to our public meeting. We have 5 untimely ballot, 4 inside and 1 from Philippines. Three domestic ballot is dated by voter after the legal deadline, so this is for sure is that. 1 domestic ballot and had not been dated, the voter didn't date. Okay, 1 is not dated, the other 3 are dated after the deadline was over.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by the one that's not dated.
That's after the legal deadline, but the voter did not put date when they signed it off.
So it was postmarked after the deadline or received after the deadline or both?
Both,
Both, but they also did not date their signature is what you're saying.
right.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Madam President, do we need to convene as the Board of Canvassers, or are we already considered in
No,
that?
no, we just convened, we're waiting for you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you. And the one from Philippines is
Signature was dated before the legal deadline, but the postmark is after. No, actually, postmark is before, but we received it in October. It traveled quite a few months.
it was signed June 28, 2022.
And the postmark is July 14th.
Yeah. So something wrong in here. So do I have a motion to reject this 5 ballot, untimely ballot?
So move.
Second,
Second.
those in favor?
We'll give that to Elise. In favor.
Okay. Any discussion? No? All right, then, those in favor of rejecting this 5 ballot, untimely ballots, say yes. Yeah, raise your
Aye.
hand, whatever. Thank you. Opposed? Okay, here. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, we reject approval of canvas meeting note with a minute.
Is there canvas minutes? Oh, I thought the canvas minutes went out.
We sent the canvas note. Do you guys have the canvas note?
There's
I
a-
don't
You don't?
There was an
recall
error
that.
on the agenda. We've already done that. It was done at the last meeting.
I thought it was they were approved last month.
We already
Yeah,
approved them. Okay, the agenda was the problem. That's okay.
Sorry.
All right, then. Do I have a vote to adjourn the canvas Board of Canvas meeting?
I move we adjourn the canvas meeting.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Those in favor? And you're going to,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. Now we are in the public board meeting and we have a quorum, so we will start the meeting. Okay, everybody's here. The only remark I have on behalf of the board, I thank you, the staff, for their endless days and night and evening, whatever, working for this. Lisa didn't like that, she's leaving. Thank you so much, guys. You worked so hard. Campaign, disclosure of campaign contribution.
Yep. As usual, I have a campaign contribution to disclose. I donated $200 to Reardon Sullivan this month for his campaign.
Yes, David.
I attended the Montgomery County Democratic Party's All Blue and 22 Gala on October the 2nd. I get free admission on the basis of my annual contribution, which I am looking up. I believe it's $500 for the year. It covers all of their events, not just this one, but I did want to report that.
Thank you, David. I didn't contribute anything. All right, then. addition,
Alan.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
Alan, sorry.
I also attended that same gala. I paid for the ticket. I can't recall what it was. It was $100, $120, something like that. I can give you exact number next time. Approximately 100, 120.
Yes, yes,
And then,
Diane.
can I ask a quick question, Kevin? I thought that there was some stipulation that unless the money is to an individual candidate, we didn't have to disclose.
My impression was that we are required to disclose attendance at party events, but not the amount, and the amount is voluntary.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so David's voluntary mention of the
Okay,
amount was not necessary. I just want to make sure in the
Yeah.
future.
I believe it was not necessary. I wouldn't want people to think that I
Okay.
was hiding it because Ami had just reported an amount, although obviously the rules are different when you're contributing to an individual than when you're contributing to a party.
all right, then, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
we skipped over additions and changes to the agenda. I just want to state for the
Oh,
record,
yeah,
we're gonna need to have an executive session on 2 personnel matters and a request by a voter to become a confidential voter.
okay.
Okay.
Madam
Any other
President,
changes? Yes, sir.
oh, just for the record, I'd also like to disclose that I did attend the Maryland Republican Party's Red, White, and Blue dinner on September 22nd, I believe it was.
I think we have to say that because that
I
was,
don't think that's necessary.
okay.
I'm sorry, but can we get a clarification on that, please? Because my impression was that we are required to disclose attendance at events, and that's what Alex just did.
Yeah, and I don't remember ever hearing that. Kevin.
My understanding was that we are required to report the amounts of contributions to any candidate whose ballot we're counting,
Who will be on our,
who will be on our ballot,
Our
but that because of the way the bylaws were written, and this is not necessarily a writing that I would, that I care about, but it's in terms of as a policy matter, if we wanted to change it, I'm not sure I would be opposed. But as I understand the way it's currently written, we are required to report attendance at party events. We don't have to necessarily report the amount, but we were required to report the attendance at party events like I just did, like Alan just did, and like Alex just did.
yeah, and that is contrary to what I think we had gone. My belief is we had gone over this when I came on the board, and I thought I had clarification that that was not necessary.
Let me go ahead and take a look at it.
When you came on the board, Diane, I believe that we proposed to ban such contributions and lost on a party line vote.
Right, I remember that.
And
That's the contribution, you go to dinner. I mean,
no, if you
it's not campaign contribution.
if you pay to go to the dinner, that is a contribution.
But not if it's to a general PAC and it's not for a specific candidate. We had gone over this and over. I
No,
remember.
no, I
We
just,
took a couple of-
Okay. Hold on. Let's not go ahead and argue back and forth about what we think it is. Let's just go ahead and read what it is.
Yes,
Okay.
4.2 B3 says a member may attend campaign fundraisers held by candidates, political parties, or ballot issue committees, provided the member discloses this fact to the board and does not publicly indicate that he or she is a member of the board. That's 4.2 B3. 4.2 B4 says a member may make campaign contributions to candidates or issues on the ballot in an election for which the member will be serving on the local board of canvassers, provided that the member discloses the contribution at the next public board meeting of the date, amount, and recipient of the contribution. That is what 4.2 B3 and 4 say.
Okay, that's it, at the end of it. All right, thank you. Public comment.
Yes, Madam President, we have a few public comments. The first is Michael Fletcher. Jerry, if you can let Michael Fletcher in to provide his comments. Please be patient. This will take a few seconds as we transition over him to the panelist. Mr. Fletcher, if you can hear us, make sure you accept that ability to address the board. Yeah, he's here. Mike Fletcher. There you go. It's coming on.
All right, Mr. Fletcher.
He's muted, so he'll have to unmute himself, or Jerry will unmute him.
How do you do it?
Mr. Fletcher, not, there you go.
This is Michael Fletcher. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. I would like to make a public statement. I've submitted this to the board. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Fletcher, Michael Fletcher. Since September 13th of 2021, I've been trying to make the board aware of the problems with our voting system and how citizens are losing confidence in the voting process. At the September 19th, 2022 board meeting, I stated that because the electronic machines that are used in our elections are subject to hacking and their operation is inscrutable, i.e. they function as black boxes, the board could strengthen the integrity of the upcoming election by authorizing a separate check of the paper ballots. This check would consist of a hand and eye inspection of the ballots for a few races that would compare the machine results to the hand counts in order to confirm that the voting machines have not manipulated the votes in any way. If the board would authorize such a check, I can assist in providing citizen volunteers required to do the counting and document the results. Election staff personnel would be needed to provide an oversight role, and I've offered to work with your acting elections director to do this. We would provide, the election staff would have to provide an oversight role, handle the ballot bins, assure the chain of custody is maintained, and provide the machine counts so we can compare them. The proposed check would consist of a hand and eye inspection for a randomly selected voting day, an early voting day at an early voting center, election day at some randomly selected Montgomery County precincts, and a sample of mail-in ballots. The ballots would be inspected and the results recorded. I proposed in my public comments that I submitted a way to do this, which obviously I'd have to talk to the election staff, look at the details. So logistically, the ballot or the check described above would require no more effort than a post-election manual ballot tabulation audit. The differences would be that more precincts would be looked at. The check would focus on more than one race, and we would count all the votes for the race, not just a sample. And of course, citizen volunteers would help to perform the check. Based on the above and also on my previous letters and emails to the board, I request that the board approve a second check as described above to be performed soon after the gubernatorial election to help maintain and restore confidence in our voting system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Kevin,
There's no comments.
no comment?
Oh, I thought David had a comment. My apologies.
I was gonna ask Kevin for a response in terms of whether any of what was just proposed is allowed
Thank
by
you,
law.
David. I'm here. I will do that. Thank you so very much for helping me. Kevin, go ahead.
You called on me.
That's rude.
You asked me why my hand was up and I put it down, Madam President, as soon as I saw Kevin raise his.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Fletcher, there are Maryland has a uniform voting process, and the State Board of Elections sets forth a variety of procedures to go ahead and be performed post-election in terms of doing auditing. I think at the September meeting, we had suggested that you raise your concerns with the state board. Did you contact the State Board of Elections to see whether this is an additional step that the state board would consider and including in their audit process, which they require every jurisdiction to go ahead and do?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I figured I would have more success talking to my local board.
Well, the process under Maryland law, though, is established by the state, and the local boards are required to follow the procedures that are established by the state board. So again, I would encourage you to raise this issue with Ms. Lamone and Ms. Trella Charleston, and then the state board, because they have set forth what are the policies and procedures for auditing within every jurisdiction within the state of Maryland.
So, Mr. Kaminsky, is there a law that would prevent you from doing more than the minimum required by the state board?
I think the regulations are construed that we are to do what the state board tells us to do in terms of conducting the audit.
Meaning no more and no less.
Correct.
Alison wanted to talk to. Go ahead, Alison.
Yes, I do have some further information to provide. I understand that the type of examination that Mr. Fletcher is talking about is something that has been proposed in some other jurisdictions in the state, and is something that there has been. While Mr. Fletcher, you may not have approached the state board about it, someone did. And I have received a copy of a letter dated Friday from Linda Lamone to Robin Sachs of the Maryland Voting Integrity Group that is responding to inquiries about the type of manual audit of ballots that I believe is what you're suggesting, Mr. Fletcher. And so I have a copy of this letter, and I will provide it to the board, and I'll make sure that we put it up on our website and provide it to you as well, Mr. Fletcher. But effectively what the letter says is what Kevin was saying, is that there are some legal considerations here, and the primary one to basically summarize is that that these processes are dictated by law, and that the ballots are not something that we are able to turn over to volunteers prior to certifying the outcome of an election. That any process that is done is done in a very narrow time window and under the direct custody and control of the election officials. And I will be happy to provide you with a copy of that letter, but I think that I just wanted to make sure that, because I had this new information about some correspondence that has gone out from the state board addressing this topic, that I will be sure to provide that to all of you. I'll summarize, actually, you're just read here briefly. It says, while I appreciate your willingness to provide the personnel to conduct the requested recount, access to official election documents, including ballots, is limited to sworn and trained election officials, not volunteers.
Thank you, Your Internet. Okay, Mr. Fletcher, thank you very much. Yes, David.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. Mr. Fletcher sent me an email with a link because in terms of what his concerns are about our equipment. And I quickly found that it was based on someone in Michigan suggesting that the low percentage in the city of Detroit for President Trump was somehow an anomaly. And I guess I wanted to find out if Mr. Fletcher had any particular evidence of problems with our specific machines besides what he's provided us thus far.
Well, Mr. Naaman, the link I sent you was actually to a site that talked about Wi-Fi chips being installed in ES&S machines.
Right, but when you go to that and then you look behind where that came from, it came from, because I did, I mean, I paid attention to what you were sending me. It went back to a claim by a former Michigan State Senator, Patrick Colbeck, And he was the one apparently who suggested that there was a chip in these machines that, at least to my knowledge, I'm not aware that chip is there. And he was basing part of his concerns over the fact that in the city of Detroit, President Trump had gotten 5% of the vote in 2020, although apparently he got 3% in 2016. So, and of course, we're talking about the city of Detroit, which is not necessarily indicative of the rest of the state or anywhere else. But whatever the case, I just wanted to get a sense, as you know, yes, you said that you asserted that there is a chip of some sort in our machines. And I guess because I had said at our meeting what I'd been told over and over again, that there is no internet access to our machines. So I guess I want to ask again for you, Mr. Fletcher, do you have any proof of the chip in our machines? And I would ask of Allison or Janet, do we know whether there are chips in our machines?
Yes, Alison going to talk and then Alison.
I just, well, two things. Number one, to answer the question, I can verify that we are not, it is possible for equipment from our vendor to be configured in such a way, or not configured in such a way, you know, but ES&S markets scanners that can be, that can transmit wirelessly. And that is something actually that if you go back years ago to when we were first acquiring this voting system, was something that we thought we were going to get, and it was something that we wanted. However, it was not something that there was federal certification to provide for. It was not something that the state was in a position to proceed with. And so we have, that was not something that the technology was in place where the state was ready to support the transmission of any sort of results wirelessly from the polling places. And so the type of concerns that Mr. Fletcher is raising are concerns that were raised, and they were concerns that were answered by making the decision that the state was not going to go in that direction. And so we do not have wireless transmission of results from the polls. I also wanted to say something that I apologize that I did not say earlier, which is to say that another part of the state's letter, and something that I would certainly emphasize as well, both to Mr. Fletcher and any and all others who are interested in this process, is that it is possible to participate and observe the processes that we have. And that observing these processes is something that I think many people find helpful to see where the checks are, where the double checks are, in order to make sure that, you know, we are always proceeding in such a way to provide for public trust and confidence, and for you to have that opportunity to have your questions answered as we are going through it. So I just want to repeat that. I want to reiterate it, that information about our public demonstration and our canvases is on our website. And I'm happy to work with you, Mr. Fletcher, to see what we can do to help you have that window into the processes that we have.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher?
Well, Ms. McLaughlin, thank you very much for the offer. I may take you up on that and try to get more familiar with the checks and balances in the system. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Next.
you. Next, we have Mary Pachulski, who would like to address the board. Jerry, if you see a Mary Pachulski.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Well, actually, good afternoon. My name is Mary Pachulski, M-A-R-Y, Pachulski, P as in Paul, A-C-H-U-L-S-K-I. And my comments have to do with election security, namely the security of the drop boxes in wide use in Montgomery County. It's been documented that ballot drop boxes have been misused to facilitate ballot trafficking in several states during the 2020 general election. And ballot trafficking involves dropping off ballots filled with names similar to voters on the roll, voters who are inactive, voters who have moved or died, or simply voters who don't exist. And many of these ballots are trafficked in this way, are placed in the drop boxes between hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So I have two questions. First, can you state that all the drop boxes in Montgomery County will have video surveillance? And two, wouldn't it be wise to prevent ballots from being accepted by what that are available to you during these hours? For example, when ballots are picked up in the evening, an election judge or attendant could lock the box so that no ballots could be deposited in the wee hours of the morning. Thank you for your attention to this issue.
Okay, Alison?
Sure, I heard two questions there, and the first question was about the video surveillance of our drop boxes. And absolutely, yes, I can verify that we have 24/7 video surveillance of our drop boxes. I can verify that that is something that is checked. The second part of your question was asking me about the wisdom of a policy, which was about whether it would be wise for our drop boxes to be to remain open 24 hours a day or to be sealed at certain times of the day. I will say that I don't really believe that that is my my call. I think that is a policy question. I think that it is not something that I have any evidence to suggest is a risk or a concern here. We have not seen, I have not seen anything about the hours that you're talking about being any special concern aside from other hours of the day, that I would not be in a position to recommend that sort of a change. But that's probably as much as I should say about it. And, you know, beyond that, it would be anything.
Well, let me just add,
Okay,
again,
Kevin.
this is another issue that the State Board of Elections has provided the local board specific direction on. And their direction is that these boxes are to remain open 24/7. They are to be under constant video surveillance, but the state board has dictated the hours when the drop boxes are going to be open. And I don't think the state board would be receptive to having one jurisdiction have different hours than every other jurisdiction within the state of Maryland. So again,
Okay, well, I guess my follow-up question would be, you state that all the drop boxes in Montgomery County have video surveillance. Can you verify that after, during 2020 and even during this past primary, that all the cameras were actually working and did provide data afterwards? Because I had heard that many of the cameras weren't working.
well, I will defer to staff. I will tell you that the video footage is maintained for the 22-month period following the election, consistent with federal law. But I would defer to the staff as to whether there were any problems with the cameras, because I was unaware of any.
Okay, how would I be able to get verification that all the cameras were working?
I would say that probably the best thing for you to do would be to send me a written request. I don't think I've gotten that request, and we can go back and I know there was a power outage or something at some point where we had an interruption. I do not, not in a position to give you specifics just verbally right now.
Right, and could I have your name?
Absolutely, as a matter of, I don't want to, make a false statement that there was absolutely no interruption at any time. But they were on, they were functioning, they were 24 hours a day, almost the entire time, and they are something that the police do check, of course, as well.
Thank you.
In fact, it was the police that let us know when we had it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
interruption.
You asked me to a request, but I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
My name is Allison McLaughlin. I'm the acting election director.
Thank you so much.
David.
Ms. Pacholski, thank you for coming to the board today. A couple of things. The requirement for video surveillance is a matter of state law. And a question for Kevin. I thought that the requirement that the drop boxes be open 24 hours was also a requirement of state law. I'm not certain about that. if that were the case, then the state board couldn't change it if they wanted to. It would be up to the legislature. And then a question, Ms. Petrowski, you said that there was documented evidence of, I think you said in a number of states of people dropping off ballots similar to voters on the roll, inactive voters, et cetera. First question, was Maryland one of those states?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, I'd appreciate it if you would. And then the second question is, when you say there's documented evidence, what is the documentation?
Well, again, there's a variety of sources from a variety of speakers, and rather than trying to gloss over and give incorrect information or documentations, I would prefer to just send that along too. So would that
Okay.
do, Al?
That would be great, because I had not heard that before. You may know this, but my understanding is that if somebody were to send us a ballot with a similar name, for example, we have systems in place that we would not be accepting that ballot. And so it would be a wasted effort on someone's part, is the way I understand our process. So I just wanted to make sure that was known.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that clarification.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Madam President, the next person we have is Robin Sachs. I'm not sure if Robin can identify herself. I don't see an email address. Perhaps there's a phone number we've shared on our smart sheet.
It's in here. Okay, it's not here. I don't see the name here, right?
No, I don't see it. Okay,
Next,
that's it.
that's it. Election Director Status Report. Alison.
My report was circulated to the board on Saturday and is either on or in the process of going up. It is on our website. I have a couple of action items from the previous meeting, and the first, you want me to cover the postmark dates on untimely ballots, or do you want to cover? Okay. We did do the inspection that we were requested to do by board members of all of the ballots that were rejected by the board of the canvassers for untimeliness at the last meeting. There were 68 ballots, as you will recall, and we were asked to go back and check the same question that was asked and answered with a smaller number of ballots that we looked at this morning, about how many of them were postmarked before and after Election Day, and what the story was behind them effectively. Were they domestic ballots? Were they military and overseas ballots? Out of the 68 total ballots, 57 of them were postmarked after Election Day, and 11 were postmarked prior to Election Day. All 11 of the ballots that were postmarked prior to Election Day were from military or overseas ballots. They were qualified voters under the federal UOCAVA Act that are entitled to have the earliest possible mailing of their ballot out to them. So it was sort of a known challenge that military and overseas voters face in the amount of time that it takes for them to get and return their ballots, which Maryland has taken steps to try to speed that process. But just as you saw this morning, that's where we run into challenges. And so all 11, as I indicated, were military and overseas voters. Madam Chair, do you want me to go on with my full report and then do questions, or you want to?
I do have a question about this particular section.
You finish your talking? Okay, David, go ahead.
So, Allison, I have not reviewed in detail what we said at the last meeting, but my impression was that we were interested for the ones that were postmarked after Election Day, and more than just being told that we correctly read the postmark, that they were postmarked after Election Day. As I recall, there was a large number of ballots that were postmarked in the Rockville post office on the day after Election Day. And we were wondering if there was some explanation for that pattern because there was such a large number of those. Have you all had a chance to look into that with the Rockville postmaster?
I did not recall that point. And so actually what I was provided by the staff, I summarized part of the information that I was given. So I can go back and look as we proceed here at what further information I have, unless Forrest, you want to comment on that?
I have to go back and look at all of them.
Let me say that this is not what I'm suggesting is not just look at the ballot and see that it was postmarked on the 20th of July, because we saw that the first time. We were sitting at the table and we saw lots of ballots that were from the Rockville post office. I can still remember it had like a little arrow that pointed towards the number 20, and there were quite a few of those. If looking back at the ballot simply means confirming that it was the 20th and not the 19th, that's not worth the time. What I was hoping was that someone could reach out to the postmaster. I would be happy to meet with the postmaster of Rockville and ask the question, because basically what I'm trying to figure out, and I think what others were trying to figure out, is whether that represents ballots that were mailed at the last minute and therefore postmarked on the 20th because they were late, or if there's some reason why there was a large number of them at that post office that were all postmarked at the same time on the 20th.
So
And
I think
these were ballots, these were ballots where the oath was signed days before the deadline. Go
So
ahead.
the question that I had the staff go ask and answer was, I think, a different question than the one that is being posed now, which was about the ballots specifically that the board rejected at its last meeting. The ballots that the board rejected at its last meeting were the ones that were postmarked. Okay, the ones that were postmarked on or before Election Day were UOCAVA ballots. Your question is about ballots that were postmarked after July 19th, and if any of those were specifically the Rockville post office, and if there was any sort of further information on that. I was concerned about how many of them were postmarked prior and how many were postmarked.
That was the question, how we understood.
Yeah.
But can I just ask a follow-up question? Are we looking at all postmarked after or just those that were postmarked July 20th?
And I'm happy
Hold on, hold
to
on.
look into this. I just want to clarify the question.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think what David is asking and what Alan is that there were 50 or 60 ballots, as I recall, that had a unique, what I'll call hand stamp that was different than what is normally the postage date that goes across the top of the envelope. And it had a red, almost like it had been stamped by someone at the post office. And the question I think that the board is asking is, what is that and what does that represent? Is that fair to say?
Thank you, Kevin.
Could be
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, go ahead, Boris.
Yeah, so my understanding now is clear. So we are not talking about 68 ballots that were presented to the board last time. We are talking about ballots that were presented previously and were reviewed in the process of the recount. So we are
Yes.
talking about the round postmark stamps with arrow that was indicating the date of the month.
Yeah.
Diane, is that what you remember as well?
That I would raise my hand. I think that this all was emphasized by the attorney for the Blair campaign in the recount when we had this batch and the issue was brought up about, was there something unique to this particular location that caused this perhaps problem or caused the result that we got, from one location.
And to be fair, for all of us, neither Diane nor I are asking this question on behalf of any campaign. We're asking because it's an issue that affected a bunch of voters and votes, and it's always very painful for all the board members when we have to invalidate ballots based on their date. But at least we want to make sure that there's a reason for us to invalidate them, and it's not some other story to these ballots because it was rather peculiar. I find it hard to believe that there would have been 60 some ballots at the very same post office, all hand canceled on the day after the election. That strikes me as being an unusual number of people who don't know what day the election is, I guess.
Okay,
Well, generally, we will research it. We will look into it. We will clarify for you for the Rockville Post Office specifically. Generally speaking, the round stamp is something that, and there are organizations out there urging voters who take their ballot to the post office on the day of the election to make sure that they get a round stamp, which is to make sure effectively that their ballot is hand postmarked.
Which is
So that it
exactly
doesn't-
why the possibility that the stamp was wrong as opposed to the voters being wrong is something that I would want us to examine.
Totally
Because
understood.
because 60 people doing it on the day of the election would make much more sense than 60 people doing it on the day after.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
interpret the round stamp to be an indication that the post office is trying to communicate to us with as much precision as possible when they got that envelope, but we will absolutely follow up and get further clarification from the post office on that.
Yeah, I want to thank Allison for that clarification. I didn't realize that, and I just want to make clear that my comments were to offer context from the events that I remember how the issue was raised.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Maurice and Allison will look your matter. Okay, they reported next.
Yep.
One meeting. All right.
The next item on my report is about our Canvas plans. And as you all know, we started the Canvas process yesterday. We had prepared, you had directed us to prepare at the previous board meeting for either eventuality where we might end up with the authorization to proceed with the Canvas before Election Day or not. And we did end up with the authorization to proceed with the Canvas before Election Day. We started here at our office. Our first couple of dates are here at our office on Sundays and Wednesdays, and then we will be moving to the Montgomery County Fairgrounds for the remainder of our election canvas. After Election Day, we will be moving to Montgomery College, to the location that we used previously for the canvas. We are jumping from location to location based on the availability. And we're able to go ahead and accommodate these first couple of days of the canvas simply because we have a lower volume at this time.
And Allison, just to be clear, it's Saturdays and Wednesdays, not Sundays and Wednesdays.
So I apologize
Certainly.
if I said Sunday, that was not accurate. Saturdays and Wednesdays. The next thing that I wanted to, or that's
One
on my
question.
list report,
To be
Oh,
honest,
yes.
one question. When we left the canvas the other day, Boris indicated 4,000 and change ballots had been canvassed. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
We have anything more precise?
no, it was less than
Exactly.
5,000, right? I don't remember the exact number.
I have to pull it up because I know that we cut open 4,208 envelopes, but I have to see how many we pulled on the side. I'll provide the exact number.
Okay, go ahead, Alice.
The next item was regarding the Canvas stipend. We had been directed at the last board meeting to address concerns about Montgomery County election judges serving in the Canvas being paid less than Canvas workers in other jurisdictions. And it's challenging to compare apples to apples because the nature of the Canvas is different in different counties, especially in the counties that do fewer dates of the Canvas. They work they smush it into fewer days and longer hours. And so when you've got somebody working, much longer hours, you have situations where people are working for a higher stipend on that day. But after taking a look, evaluating what we saw, having a conversation with Kevin about his conversations with the board about the goals here, what we settled on and what we offered the Canvas workers at yesterday's Canvas was an increase from 110 to 175 per day. That works out to, if you calculated it hourly, which of course we don't, it's upwards of $20 an hour sort of equivalents that the Canvas workers are making. So that is a significant increase from the 110 to the 175, and that sort of reflects what we found in looking at the other jurisdictions around the state. Then I see a hand up, I think.
Yes, yes. Is there any way we can actually see what data you looked at in terms of, are they working, 10-hour days, 12-hour days? How much longer? Do they start earlier? Can we get a better sense of what the day is in the other counties that you were looking at and what they're paying for it, so that we have a better understanding of that?
And it varied so much, and it varies even day to day for them. But yeah, I can definitely get you a more detailed written response on that.
Thank you.
Okay,
The
go ahead.
Do you also include the hourly rates at those jurisdictions?
Actually, I don't think we
We
follow
generally
that.
don't calculate it as an hourly rate. We're paying election judges and we're paying.
Okay.
daily stipend.
Thank you.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a
I mean, if you could just give us a better sense of what a day looks like, what do they consider a day in Howard County or Prince George's County? And then what they're paying them for that day, whatever that is. But we appreciate, I certainly appreciate the increase, and, that it was obviously substantial. And so that's much appreciated, but it would help if I could just have a better understanding of what a day is for the other counties and then what they're paying.
The next, oh, I see another hand up.
Yes. Well, first, I want to thank all the members of the board who voted at our last meeting to basically to require the increase. Now, as I understand it, the motion that we passed at our last meeting was that our instruction was that we wanted to match or exceed what the other jurisdictions were paying. And you just said, Allison, that we don't tend to think of it in hourly increments. We tend to think of it in days, but it sounds like we are not necessarily matching or exceeding the daily pay in the other jurisdictions. So, and part of what I'm concerned about is that, I don't want to lose canvassers to other jurisdictions because by working extra hours, they can get more pay for the whole day. So I was wondering if you can explain kind of whether we have in fact matched or exceeded the other jurisdictions, and are we talking about drastic differences in terms of they work 2 days and we work 20, or are we talking about much closer distinctions?
I think it's probably going to be best for me to answer that question
Yeah.
by giving the sort of detailed information that was requested. And then, we can discuss it, characterize it, look to changes in it in the future. There's so many factors that go into play here.
Okay, I'll just say that the motion was pretty specific.
The last canvasser worked 9 hours. Times 20 is $180.
No. I understand what we did. What we were there, so we know what we did. But at our last meeting, I mean, first of all, I think it's wonderful. It's roughly a 60% increase that we've given, and I'm really I'm concerned that we were not paying enough before, but I'm glad that that we're now more competitive. And it would be helpful.
What?
We're paying more than we're paying our staff.
Oh,
Okay. Well, our staff is underpaid too.
Yes.
Can't change that.
You can change
I'll
that.
provide the information, I'll along with that, I want to provide information to you on, what the constraints that we're facing as well. But I will absolutely provide the information that I have, which is somewhat, it's variable about what I was able to get from the other counties. So
Are other counties paying their canvassers more than they pay their staff?
I don't know. I didn't expand my inquiry in that way, so I will, I'll do some further asking around and answer that too.
Okay. When can we get this?
After the election is over.
I'll put out some inquiries today and see what I can get and how quickly I can get it. I'm not sure, I'm not certain.
Okay, Madam President, I don't think after the election is over is sufficient, because if the board wants to
We
go
cannot
further.
change the pay during the election. So it's already done, it's already in the budget. If you do anything, it's for next election or next canvas or something.
Well, Madam President, I realize that's your opinion. But I don't,
Mr. Neiman, this is Lisa Marino. I just want to say that as the HR liaison here, we've kind of gone really about the stipend because the stipend varies depending on the task for all Board of Elections. So not all election judges who are on site and receive a stipend are paid the same amount. And so if we adjust one, then we have to adjust all of them. And all these individuals have been told what their stipend will be that has been budgeted based on for this fiscal year. So to do one increase, it'll eventually have to increase all the others. And so I don't think that we are in a position to do that at this time. I think with the canvas, we were able to do that because the canvas hadn't started and we were able to make that adjustment. But I do think that the department will look into what you've asked. We will do the research and provide you the information that you've requested.
well, I appreciate that. I personally would not view it as a bad thing if we were to increase salaries for staff and for other election workers. I would view that actually as a good thing.
Absolutely.
But let me just finish, which is that there's a bigger issue here, which is the board spoke unanimously and clearly, and it was written in plain English. And so if the staff is going to then make changes to what the board, and again, we're not required to have a unanimous vote, but we did have a unanimous vote. And it was a very clear vote. And if the staff is going to make changes to what the board is doing, the explanation really should come before it's too late for us to say, no, that's not what we meant. Because I think we said it about as clearly as we could say it.
I agree, Mr. Naiman. I do have your motion here. And I think the last statement on your motion was staff will report back to the board on this item, making any budget adjustments required. There was an increase to the budget. I'm sorry, to the canvas stipend, but to match other jurisdictions is not something we can do because it'll affect.
Well, I think we did.
Yeah, we did.
It causes us to kind of attempt to calculate things in an hourly equivalent, which we try not to do. But that was exactly the exercise that we tried to go through, was to try to look at what the hourly equivalent would be and make sure that we were matching the top of what we found. But I'll document that and get it to you in writing.
May I suggest that the information be circulated? David, I mean, I was part of this process and I think the staff achieved what the board requested, which is looking at the number of hours that other canvassers are working and what they're getting paid, and then comparing that to what our day looks like in terms of the number of hours we canvass, coupled with the fact that our canvass lasts much longer than other jurisdictions.
Well, I would respectfully say that I didn't consider it to be a request from the board. I considered it to be a direction from the board. Secondly, we didn't say compare it and do a rough approximation. We said meet or exceed. And I'm pretty sure if you go back to the recording, that's what we said. And so, and I understand there's lots of complications when you make those kinds of decisions. My gripe is not, oh, you didn't follow exactly what I said word for word. It's you didn't follow what the board voted to do word for word. And then you're telling us now that it's too late to, basically our only opportunity to ask questions is this meeting. And this meeting is too late to do anything about it. So you made changes to what we voted on without telling us at any point between then and when did we get your report, Allison? Yesterday, Saturday? So we had no opportunity, we had no input into your adjustments to what we voted on by a unanimous vote.
May I ask my friend or worthy secretary, can he tell us exactly what the wording of the motion was? Because I was wondering whether we could be in a position to actually direct them to increase it when we didn't know all the budgetary implications.
Exactly.
I believe that I could go back and listen to the recording as you could. But unfortunately, the minutes that we received didn't include the discussion at all. But what I believe we said was that we were directing them to meet or exceed. We were not requiring them to come back and tell us that they had accomplished our goal, which was meeting or exceeding. In other words, we didn't say come back and say yes, we did what you said, but we did not say do a rough approximation. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, that was a pretty, it was a pretty direct statement. And I believe we did say, and, you know, and if we need to make adjustments to the budget, we will help you make adjustments to the budget. If we need to go to the county government and ask for more money, we will help you go to the county government to ask for more money. I mean, there's a, you know, there's a nationwide shortage of election workers. And in the state where, you know, we're competing with, you know, with other jurisdictions, and yeah, we have the longest canvas, and we have to do whatever we can to, you know, I mean, we, you know, for us to finish in a reasonable amount of time, we need the greatest number of people, which again, one of the factors for that is how much we pay. So, and I know we don't have to have, I know I'm kind of preaching to the converted here, because we had this whole conversation last month and we all agreed.
I know, but my question more specifically was this a process that we could assume that there was no way that it would not be possible to do that? Meaning that it had to be done and it would be done. There was no possibility that there were other factors that would make it either difficult or impossible. That was this possible to fulfill?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, Alex, but I would say this. If the board asks the, you know, directs the staff to do something and the staff is not able to do it, I would think the time to tell us that is before they implement their own solution, not after it's too late to change anything. And I really, part of why my button has been pushed today is that we're basically being told that nothing is possible at this point, when this is the first point at which we were told what was done.
Okay, Alison, yes.
If I characterize something in a way that gave the impression that the staff saw a barrier to our being able to do what the board said and didn't do it, then I apologize. That was not what I attempted to communicate. I believe that we did exactly what the board told us to do. I believe when we looked at what other jurisdictions were paying, we saw jurisdictions that were working longer days than we were. And we looked at those numbers as an hourly rate equivalent, which
is not what we talked
about. Go back and
about.
look at the phrasing of the motion. If the only thing I were looking at was just a dollar amount that we pay to canvassers, it's easy to just match it, done. When I'm looking at a number that another jurisdiction is paying and they're working more hours than ours are, and perhaps I interpreted the board's question or the board's direction, pardon me, as something to look at as an hourly rate equivalent, as opposed to something to look at as a flat amount of the total check for the day, then that's a misinterpretation on our part. In going into the whole discussion about the tightness of this calculation, I've probably misled you. But I believe that we did exactly what the board asked us to do. If I misconstrued the board's direction in looking at it as an hourly rate equivalent, as opposed to looking at it as a flat amount for the day when they're working fewer hours than another jurisdiction in that day, then yes, then I guess I misinterpreted the board. I did not in any way mean to suggest that my comments, my concerns about where we have found ourselves by following the board's direction and going ahead and matching what we see in other jurisdictions, which now has us in an upside down situation where we have canvassers making more as an hourly rate equivalent than our staff. I would never have recommended that. I did that because that was what I interpreted to be the direction of the board, which I followed. I will get that in writing to you. Hopefully that will clear up any questions, some concerns, and if there's further changes that we need to make, we'll make them. And on
Okay.
the next item.
Is that the end?
Okay.
I don't see any hand. Go ahead.
I will circulate that. The sample ballots, final proofs were approved on October 5th. Printing began that weekend with initial delivery to the post office on Friday, October 13th. And they have all gone into the mail stream to my knowledge at this point. So voters are beginning to receive them. You can also go to our website for a link to an electronic copy of the sample ballot publication, which also has a link there where voters can go to the voter lookup tool on the state board website. And if they click on the page there, they can see the version you see on our website is the shell that has blank pages where the actual facsimile of the ballot goes. But if you click on that link, you can go to the voter lookup tool, which will give you the ability to look at a sample of your very own ballot for your precinct as well, and have all of that information electronically. Any questions on the sample ballot?
I got mine.
Great. So the next was about precinct 1324. We had an inquiry at the last meeting about leasing arrangements at the Holy Cross Research Center. And the staff did follow up and confirm that the facility is still going to be used, is still available for use as a polling place. We are, of course, working with some different individuals there in our on-site arrangements, but there is no disruption in the use of the Holy Cross Resource Center as the polling place for precinct 1324. The next item that I have in my report is to verify that the State Board of Elections did in fact approve at its meeting on September 28th, our request for additional ballot marking devices at specific polling places in the county where we have historically seen a need for a greater demand for the ballot marking devices. My report also includes the monthly statistical information, which is also on our website, about how many registered voters we have. As of October 12th, we had processed 124,104 applications for a vote by mail ballot for the gubernatorial general election. And we're roughly on track of what we've seen previously. We're at 63% of those requests were for a permanent vote by mail ballot and 15% requests for a web delivery ballot. The ballots themselves were mailed beginning on September 24th. Ballots for domestic voters were subsequently mailed beginning on September 29th. And as of October 13th, we had 6,909 ballots returned, which broke down to 5,886 that were mailed to voters and 1,023 that had been sent to voters electronically and then returned to us, either by mail drop box or over our front counter. Any questions on voter registration or vote by mail? Nope. The next item was ballot supply and equipment preparation, and I have a revised request for board members. We're working on the inventory and the packing of all of the ballots and other materials for the polls. We will be ready on October 20th, which is the same day as the public test of the voting equipment, for the verification of the supplies to the early voting sites, consistent with the plan that we had the board approve last week. And so Kevin, can you clarify, do we only need 2 board members for that? We need one of each party, or do we don't need a quorum for the verification of the supplies, correct?
Oh, supply.
For the public test, we generally have we have 2, a member of each political party.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we do the early voting equipment verification the same day. So that's October 20th. What is the time? I didn't write that. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. for the public test. So I want to verify having a board member of each party at least present for that on the 20th. And then the day that we want to do the election day supply verification is November 3rd. And we can be flexible on the timing on that one, but let's shoot for 10 a.m. on that day as well. So we'll circle back around with you on that.
Yeah.
I have a couple of personnel things that I'd like to announce that I'm excited about. The first is a promotion for Artie Chumble, who many of you know has been with our voter services staff for quite some time. She was principal administrative aide, and she is now an office services coordinator in our voter services division. And I also want to announce that Mindy Williams, who I think some of you have worked with in the past at the Silver Spring Civic Building, has accepted a position here as the election operations manager. This is a double encumbered position. Chris Zizit is still in it, and because, as you all know, she had announced her retirement to you previously, and so we have an overlap where Chris is not yet retired and Mindy is going to come in. And so we are going to be able to hand off that role seamlessly.
Can we keep them both until 2024?
You'll have to ask them.
Chris is here. You
Chris
want to
is
talk to
smiling.
him?
Yeah. I can only imagine the face that Chris would have given to that suggestion.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
I do have one unfortunate for you to know that Lisa Jones, our information technology technician 3, has resigned her position. We do have those duties covered by other individuals here in the office. And as you all know, we have some additional newly created positions that we have not yet been able to fill in our information technology team. And so we have, some temporary staff there that are well known to you all, as well as some additional support from the state board filling those functions. Our current count of temporary employees on the payroll, when I checked this weekend, is 74, which includes 7 new temporary floater positions. We tried that as a different approach this time, that were hired specifically to float around the office and assist with different functions as needed to help fill some of our staffing gaps.
David, your
I see a
hand
hand.
is up. You want to talk? David,
Yes, I just wanted to say very briefly that on a serious matter, I want to thank Chris for having the longest pre-retirement lame duck period of anyone I know, and for continuing to stick with us as we've needed her, because I know that she had planned to exit some time ago. And I wanted to welcome Mindy, who Elise and I had a chance to meet when we and Allison were looking at the Silver Spring Civic Building when the Great Hall was not available for the primary or for a portion of the primary for early voting. And we're excited about her arrival. Thank you.
Chris is here.
Oh, would you like to make any
Thank
comments to
you,
the board?
David, for the kind words. I appreciate it. We're trying to make a transition that's smooth.
But we appreciate it. I realize that you're staying through 2024 might not be quite the angle that you were looking for that smooth transition, but we appreciate the fact that you stayed as long as you have.
Thank you. 2024 is a ways away.
And I think the last or second to last item on my list here is election judge training. Count as of October 14th, and this is fully trained. They've attended their training, they're done. I'm not talking about people in the queue are yet to be trained. We had fully trained 2012 full-time or full-day election judges and another 276 individuals for half-day positions on election day. That is, of course, we're never fully satisfied with our number of election judges, and it continues to be a struggle, not so much to get people to apply to serve as an election judge, but to get people to follow through on the process and attend a training class now so that we don't have really inflated classes at the end of the cycle. And people calling us asking why we didn't take them up on their offer to serve as an election judge when we didn't have training classes anymore to put them into. So that's our number. That's where we are now. And we're doing something that's a little bit different. We've always been very proud of the fact that we don't treat students differently than we treat adults. That students, the 16-year-olds and up, need to come to the same adult classes and do the same adult duties as anybody else in our program. But because we have had some complaints from students that some of the timing is a little challenging for them because they are in school and it is the fall and we need them. So we are doing a dedicated day of training specifically for high school students on October 24th because there's no school that day. So we'll be flexible and we'll meet the needs where we need to. The schedule for the Canvas dates and the live stream links is up on our website. That was the one thing that I had noted on our website report, which I know the board always wants us to report back at every meeting. I see a couple hands that covered a couple of things there, so I apologize if your questions cover different things.
Do you want to go ahead, Diane?
Sure. Thanks. I'll make it really quick. The only election for which I was on the board was the last one during COVID and all those changes, excuse me, So Allison, just briefly, could you give me some idea of what the high school students' training will be, what positions they will be in? You said that they're going to get the same training as election. I didn't hear you say election judges.
They do. They get the same exact training as the adults. If they're, now I'm talking about those that are 16 and up, that under state law are eligible to serve as election judges. They are election judges. They are not treated any differently than a 40-year-old who's serving as an election judge. And that part of our, making that clear has been always to have them attend the same classes as with the adults. But just because we are trying to be creative and flexible in our staffing and our training, we are going to do some targeted high school training classes, but they are still going to be fully trained and doing all of the functions that they would do if they were in a training class side by side with somebody who was older. Now that's different from our Future Vote program. And our Future Vote program, which, although it was a program that Gilberto grew, has grown over his time here, which is our program where we have student poll workers who are under the age of 16. That was something that we, unfortunately, Gilberto made the call to go ahead and pull the plug on due to COVID in the 2020 election. And so we're in a rebuilding phase now. But that is back up, that is running, and parents are required for those under 16 students, parents are required to participate in that process as well, participate in that training. That process is also underway, and that training is available, but they are two different programs. One is the Future Vote program for those basically under 16, and one is the extent to which we leverage age 16 and up students to serve full-fledged election judges.
Okay, thanks. So one final follow-up. When we were talking about the Future Vote, there was a little bit of effort that was needed in order, which resulted in Gilberto changing the notice on the website that talks about it, soliciting participation, to make it clear that U.S. citizenship was required in order to participate. Is there any requirement like that for the high school students?
Sure. I'm trying to remember that conversation. That was some time ago. I don't recall that particular conversation. I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember the details of it and what the wording was on the website. But for the, yes, absolutely. Election judges are required to be Maryland registered voters, and that of course requires citizenship.
Right, but these kids are not going to be registered voters, correct? Or are?
Yes.
Sorry, are we talking about the
The high
future vote?
school.
Are we
High
talking about the
school.
future vote or the election
I'm
judges?
talking about high school. I was analogizing it to.
There's two different categories of high school
Hold on.
students here.
Yeah, it is. Is that for future voter, or you're talking about 16 and above election judges? I mean,
Allison's, are you asking Allison?
No, we're asking you.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
asking
no,
you.
Allison's presentation was on high school, the high school program. I simply mentioned Future Vote to draw an analogy with how that was changed to make it clear that it had to be US citizens. I'm wondering, is there verification for the high school students that they are US citizens? And Allison says they're registered in order to participate as pre-voters. What, I didn't understand what, I'm just looking for clarification.
Yes. Yes,
Okay, Allison, go ahead.
you are correct. One can fill out a voter registration application at age 16 and effectively pre-register to vote. And that is a requirement in order to serve as an election judge.
Okay, and so that verifies all status, all citizenship status at that point.
In order to be a registered vote, in order to be an election judge, you have to be a registered voter. In order to be a registered voter, you have to be a citizen. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yes, Kevin.
I apologize if I missed this. Did you say, Allison, that it was 16, or, I mean, it used to be you had to be 17 years old to be an election judge?
It's 16. It was, I forget when that law change was, but yes, it's
Okay.
16.
Thank you.
2018, Judge.
Okay,
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Alice.
Yes, I had a question about the election judge training. Do we know how this compares to 2018, where we were in terms of the numbers that we had? I know when I visited a lot of the polling places on election day, many of the chief judges were, indicating that they were shorthanded, that they didn't have runners and didn't have people in certain positions. So do we know how this compares to our run up to 2018, sort of where we were in the process? And what's the overall magic number that means everybody is, our polling places are sufficiently staffed? I mean, are we 60% there, 70% there? What are the numbers?
We're always shy of our target. I feel like the targets that we set are always kind of reach targets that we struggle to meet. Jen, I'll let you characterize. You can do that better than I can. You want to come sit here or there?
When I ran the numbers earlier this week, the chief judges look pretty good. We're short maybe 70, but some of them are still in training. Most of the positions look good, except for closers that help close down the precincts and people that work all day. And so we're pushing for that. I think for the VOPs, which are the ones that work all day or half days, we were shy maybe 800 to 1,000. But I hadn't run it through the end of the training cycle because most of the classes are full, and I did not do a last week of training during early voting yet, waiting for the recruiters to tell me what they need so I can create the classes.
Okay, and do we know how this compares to 2018? Sort of where we were?
I don't.
Okay, okay. And the magic number for each category, do we have that written somewhere?
Yeah, I do. I have to look it up on the allocation.
I mean, at this point, we've got.
I can tell you chiefs because it's however many precincts we have times 2. So we have 231 locations. So we need 462 chiefs. We need 462 closers. Provisional and same day registration, we just need 231. We just do one at each site of each position. It's the VOPs where we need the push. That's why we're doing this for the kids, because most of them are the VOPs and they really want to work, but they were just like, we can't get to the class, the training classes at the times you have them. So I set aside that whole day and we're just going to target them and we'll sign them up behind the scenes and not open it to the public until we find out, that no more signing up, then we'll open it up.
Trained and ready right now, just rough, like back of the envelope math, we're about, looks like almost about 10 per polling place.
Yes.
So everything we're doing from here is to make sure that we've got the bodies that we need, that we feel that we need, in the event of higher turnout at different locations, and making sure that we fill specific roles.
Hold on. Alan, you have a question?
I think Elise was still talking.
Elise, are
No,
you talking?
Clearly you have this information in your head, Janet. Is there any way we can just get what you just told me, like on a single sheet of paper, like
Yes.
462 chiefs, 231, this, that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I can give it to you. It's on the bottom of the allocation. I look at it every day, so it kind of becomes ingrained. So,
Yeah,
And also the comparison to 2018, like you asked for, Elise.
yeah, that would be really, really helpful to us. Thank you.
Alan,
Yeah, thank you for sending the photos of the electioneering zones for the different precincts and early voting sites. Are we putting the electioneering lines in the same places as in the past?
Chris,
City Hall wanted her to call them.
oh,
Chris
Chris
stepped out of the
has,
room. So,
Chris has the emergency call. She has to answer it. David, hold on.
I'm hesitant to
Yeah.
confidently characterize where we've had changes since when.
Right.
The electioneering boundaries were circulated as we have them now. And the board certainly has the ability to flag anything, raise concerns to us, something that we need to move. I didn't get that to you far enough in advance for us to have a really thorough conversation about it at this meeting.
Right, by when do you need that?
Certainly, as you do that, if you see something that we need to, that, you know, you've got some concerns about, then.
Yeah, Silver Spring, we saw only one view, and we can't see the stairs, which are often in controversy, to see, you know, which stairs you can go up, for example, and that's okay to campaign there, but the stairs the other direction, you can't do it. If you show all of the electioneering cones, we could tell that, for example, it's just one place, for example.
Okay,
So you would like additional specificity on our plan for Silver Spring.
Yes.
And Kevin, since you're the one who's often kind of in the middle on these election day requests to move electioneering boundaries around, would you like to advise on any sort of process that you'd like to follow on board members' requests in advance, or?
Well, I don't think the board just got the schematics, so why don't they look at them, and then if there are issues, go ahead and flag whatever sites there may be a potential issue, and we can see what we can do to address them before election day.
Can these be posted on the
Let's just
website?
handle that as a staff function with Chris. Do you want to be in the loop on those? Do you?
Chris is here. Okay.
There was a question, Chris, that I was struggling to answer as to just sort of characterizing the electioneering boundaries. And have we made changes, or the nature of any changes? The board members obviously haven't had a full chance to review all of that yet, and they're going to take a look. But if you want to go ahead and give me a characterization of what they've got.
Basically, all of the lines, once a survey is conducted out at a location, we measure off of the main entrance. Now, sometimes we use a secondary entrance, then we have to sometimes have two no electioneering locations off of the customary main entrance and then the secondary entrance. It's always a measurement of 25 feet, unless that 25 feet is basically out in the lane of traffic. Then we have to make some adjustments and move the line out further than 25 feet in order to ensure that people aren't standing in the middle of the street or the lane that leads up to the main entrance of the building.
But by and large, these are the boundaries that were used in the primary. There have been some site changes. There were some polling place changes, although by and large, we were going back to previously used sites. And then we've got the previous boundaries that we used at those sites are what we are provided the board with, right?
Now, yes, and there might be some remembrance of a different line during 2020, because you'll recall that during 2020, the governor had put in the proclamation when he was talking about using vote centers 100 feet. So during the 2020 election, the boundary line was drawn 100 feet off the main entrance or the voter entrance. And then now in 2022, we've moved back to the customary 25 feet off the main entrance. And basically those lines have not changed.
Or 25 to 100 if the board previously said.
If you had requested a change because of inconvenience, basically on safety issues.
Any question for Chris?
Yes,
Your hand is up. Go
my
ahead.
hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, the maps that you sent us on Sunday, have they been posted on the website, and can they be?
I would have to defer to Tabs, our technology department as far as the space, the volume, the memory, but they're ready to go. And if the board is feeling that they're satisfactory, we can look into having them posted on our website.
I was actually hoping to post them on the website in order to allow people to look at them and determine whether they think they're satisfactory and communicate with us. So for example, if they had been posted last week as a meeting material, then someone could have reached out to us and said, we're concerned about the electioneering lines at X location. So I'm actually hoping that we can post them before they're final. Because my next question was going to be, when do they have to be final? Because there's a good chance that we're going to get concerns. I think that we can make everyone's job a little easier on election day if we address some of them in advance, rather than waiting until someone complains on election day. My hope anyway was that we could that we could post them. And then my other question was one that I asked by email on Sunday. I believe that we have some locations that we moved built within a building during the primary because of lack of air conditioning in certain spaces that we have traditionally used. And the one that occurs to me, because I spent some time there on election day, which I'm sure Ami remembers because she spent time there with me, was Wooten High School, where we were using a side entrance and the cafeteria, and everyone was saying, but we always used the gymnasium in the past. And I remember being at the gymnasium at Wooten in past elections, but I believe we were not in the gymnasium because it was July and they don't have air conditioning. So my question is, can we get a list of the locations where we are moving within buildings, back to places we've been before, and have the electioneering maps been adjusted to reflect that, because the Wooten map at least appears to be the same space that we were using in the primary.
I will check into that, but I intend to use the auxiliary gym at Wooten. That is the customary location because the convenience.
Okay, but the primary was in the cafeteria. So
That's correct, because
Okay.
we had no air conditioning in the gymnasiums.
in the auxiliary gym as well, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I figured. Okay, so if there are other examples, obviously we'd like to see the electioneering lines for the correct entrance at Wooten for where we're going to be voting. And it would be great to get a list of any other locations where we are making similar shifts of location, because air conditioning is not as much of an issue on November the 8th as it is on July the 19th.
Well, we wouldn't be now making changes because of heating or air conditioning. Basically, our changes were made during the summer because
Right.
of either air conditioning or construction.
Right.
And we will be back at all of the traditional locations.
Which is
in 2020.
great, and I'm very appreciative of that. I want to make sure that our electioneering maps are tied to those same locations,
We'll,
because and then if we can get a list of those, that would be great.
we'll check that. At Wooten, I think would be the only one that would really fall under that scenario.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Alex.
One more. I'm sorry. One more question about election judges. If somebody wants to volunteer today, I gather they can still do that. It's not too late. And they go on the website and they volunteer, and then the key is get trained as soon as possible.
Janice said yes, they can.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
We traditionally close election judge recruitment on the voter registration deadline.
Which is tomorrow.
After that date, we have more challenges with, especially if somebody's got an address change or something, that we have some challenges. But we also traditionally extend that deadline in order to try to fill our vacancies. So we want to get people in as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Alex.
Chris, I just wanted to point out on page 102 for precinct 719, which is North Bethesda Middle School. That's actually a photograph of Wingate Elementary School. I know we
Okay.
have used that sometime in the past, but that's not actually North Bethesda. Just wanted to flag that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. If this is redundant, just for a final clarification, the no electioneering zone is how many feet? I see a,
25
I see
usually.
a 25 to 100-foot zone. What are we using?
Oh, Diane, it is under Maryland law in Montgomery County. It's anywhere from 25 to 100 feet.
Okay, and that's, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
So, okay.
okay. Any other question? No? Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Alison, go ahead.
That is
Finish.
that concludes my director's report, yes.
Okay. Board Attorney, Kevin.
Madam President, all my items are for executive session.
Okay. Thank you.
You
New
could thank the Court of Appeals for us.
Yes, I could. I'll make a point of passing that along when I see them.
Yes, and Judge Bonifant as well.
I will do so.
Yes.
New business. Anybody has new business?
The only new business item I believe that's on the agenda is the Canvas schedule. I'm not
Canvas
sure
is
if we have a
scheduled.
discussion
Kevin, you
item
want
on
to
that.
talk about Canvas schedule as a new business?
I don't have all the dates in front of me. We're going to get them posted. Obviously, we have a schedule for the board members, and I know things do come up. But if you need to change the times, please let Naheed, myself know as soon as possible, because we need to make sure that we maintain a quorum for all the sessions that we have. I know it's a major commitment for the board, particularly with this pre-election canvassing, which is, I think is ultimately going to turn out to be very helpful in the end. But if there's a problem that comes up or you need to switch with one of your colleagues, please make sure that everyone knows what's going on so that we can keep everything moving.
They are up. All of the dates that we had previously circulated to the board members to establish a quorum for all the way through November 29th are now listed on our website. Obviously, they are subject to change, and then we'll update the website if and as they do.
Thank you.
Kevin, I just want to know what PM means, because some of you just put PM, didn't say what time. PM is from 12 o'clock until 12 p.m., 12 a.m. So what time in PM for?
I think I put,
So we started off at 9 a.m.
Is Army said PM? I just make it easier for you because Elise said it's good, said 9 a.m. to 1:30 and then so and so, but Army, you said PM on 10/26. What time is the PM?
You're muted.
Oh, it's the
I mean, you're
muted.
muted.
do we really want to discuss this now?
Just hold on, just that's the last
Okay,
one.
no, I was assuming PM would be after 12 and I will
After 12.
probably be there roughly 12:30. I can
Okay.
leave my other meeting at 12 and depending on traffic.
Thank you. We want to know, okay. Old business.
Alan has his hand up.
Yeah, on legislation, maybe I missed this. Allison, did you discuss the hearing and what happened with the hearing that you testified at?
Oh, my apologies. I was thinking it's not the legislative session. I don't have a legislation report to give, and so I didn't. But yes, there was a Ways and Means hearing, and I did testify. I was asked to address a couple of items, some of which they want some more specificity, and I need to get answers to them in writing. I was not asked to submit any written remarks, and I had followed up with them asking if they needed that and was told it wasn't necessary. So I did not submit written remarks. I spoke verbally, and I have not, quite frankly, transcribed my own notes in order to provide them to you in writing. But it is up on it was the Ways and Means Committee. I don't have the date here for when I did that, but the bottom line, I reported back on all of the things that I had reported to the board on as far as the primary election. There was one point that I made a point of really wanting to drive home with the legislature, which is the need for clarity moving forward in what the nature of elections in Maryland is going to be, because we need to be able to plan for facilities and staffing. If we're going to be, I described the way that we're going to be jumping from location to location to location to do the canvas. And we're going to need to have some conversations in Montgomery County about our use of space and finding space that we can consistently rely on instead of needing to jump in the way that we are now. And then, of course, staffing as well. As you know, we have maintained approximately a 20% vacancy rate throughout the entirety of the 2022 election cycle. You know, we hire somebody, we lose somebody, and staffing has been very challenging. But it also means that we have vacancies that, you know, if we need to shift the way that we staff for the future of the way elections are going to be done, then, you know, now is that time where we need to make decisions about whether we're going to beef up more on vote by mail, or we're going to beef up more on in-person training, or what we're going to do staffing wise. And so it would really be helpful if the legislature were to give us greater clarity on what the future looks like, so that we can provide that information to the county in making sure that we can structure appropriately for the future.
Thank you.
Allison, was there any reaction by the panel to what you had said on that issue?
Informally, you know, thank you for raising that. You know, I didn't really receive, you know, the detailed questions were, you know, sort of more retail questions about individual voters or poll workers' experiences. But you know, I think that point was heard.
Okay. Anything else, Allison? Kevin, anything else? No?
No.
Oh, Madam President, just one other housekeeping matter for Allison. I've been having some problems with my email. I sometimes do not receive messages from either Kevin or board staff or other board members. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I haven't been. And I will double check, but I don't think I got the election director report. It just didn't come through, and I'm still trying to figure out why. But if you could send that to me again, that would be helpful.
I will gladly do so.
Maybe they use a different, they have two emails. But so she's going to check. Lisa is checking too. All right, thank you. Approval of the minute, action item. Did you go through action item?
The action items that I have written down, and anyone else who wants to chime in can let me know, but I have a note here that I am to provide information, detailed information in writing to the board about the data that we looked at and any additional data that I can obtain from other jurisdictions about their pay for their canvas workers and what kinds of hours and days that is based on. I also have written here that I am to provide information in writing to the board on a more detailed breakdown of our current election judge allocation, staffing, where we stand with it, both in terms of the specific positions and in terms of a comparison with the 2018 election cycle. I also have written down here that we are going to pursue getting the electioneering photos posted to our website. We will work on in order to, you know, break that up into manageable attachment sizes, or, you know, what we need to do in order to get that done. We are going to specifically, there were two things flagged to us. One was some additional photos requested for specificity of exactly what staff is intending to do with the electioneering boundaries in Silver Spring. And one was an error that was identified to us where it looks like we have the wrong photo for Wingate instead of North Bethesda. but I'm going to ask that the board go ahead and look and see if you've got anything else to draw to our attention. Flag that to Chris. Copy that to me if you can. I'm not sure if Kevin wants all of them at this point or if he just wants to be in the loop on those last minute changes that we need to go out and do. I also am going to include in the information that comes out to the board members any specific sites where the electioneering boundaries that we have provided to you are changed from the primary election, so that you can anticipate any concerns or questions that are going to arise from voters or from campaigns.
Can I add to that, please? Because there's two categories here. There's the category where they have changed, and there's a category where, like in Wooten High School, we need to get the other entrance. What we were given is for the entrance that we're not using. And my request was, Chris said that she thought that Wooten was the only school in that category, but my request was to get a list of any other places where we are changing locations.
Got it. And I'm gonna I'm gonna check the email address I used for Alex. We're gonna go back. I know we've had some technical issues. We're gonna go back and revisit that and see if we did something wrong here.
Right.
There was also checking with the Rockville Post Office to see if there was some.
Yeah, Boris just mentioned it to Allison. Yeah, thank you.
Some explanation.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
All right then. Approval of the minutes.
Yeah, one more thing,
Anything else?
Allison, with
Yeah.
regard to all of the early voting sites, be good to see all of the electioneering boundaries. And all of these, you see the front, but sometimes there are controversies over the side boundaries. I've seen that in a number of different places. Good to see those. Mid-County is one, Nancy Basic's another. It'd be good to see the sides for all of these.
Do they have a side?
If you can, I've written those down. And if you can flag for us any other specific ones that you see inadequacy in the photos, then we'll go back through our files and look for, you know, we probably have something. And if we don't, then we'll look to continuous improvement here.
Yeah, thank you. In the past, we've seen several views. Thank you.
Chris, anything else? No. Approval of the minute. August 13th. Do I have a motion?
Madam President?
Yes.
Yes, I would move that the board approve the draft meeting minutes of the meeting for August 13th, 2022.
I'll
Second.
second.
That's as amended in the last email we
As
received.
amended.
Well, I wasn't sure about that. Was it, did Mr. Banoff actually offer some edits on that one?
Which
That's a good
one is
question.
Oh, yeah, I thought I did.
Yeah,
Okay, as amended.
Then, Madam President, if that is in fact the case, I would amend my motion with the chair's permission. I would move that the board approve the draft minutes of the meeting of the board of August 13th, 2022 as last modified by Mr. Banoff.
second.
Okay. Yes, okay. Ami second. Those in favor of that, say yes.
Aye.
Opposed? August 25th.
It's actually August 24th, I believe.
Is it
Correct.
24th?
My apologies again.
Okay, August 24th. Thank you. Okay, David. Lisa, apologize.
I move we accept the August 24th minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? September 19th. David, you said we hold to that one, something I heard? I don't know.
Yeah, those minutes are incomplete and the timestamps are inaccurate. And I guess I wanted to get an understanding as to what happened there because obviously, that was our last meeting and we had some discussions that aren't reflected at all.
Okay.
Mr.
okay.
Naaman, this is Lisa Marino. I'm just letting you know that the wrong attachment was sent to you guys. It ultimately was the wrong draft that was sent. We had two
Oh.
working documents and it was the wrong one that was sent. So I do have an updated and revised one, and I can send that out tomorrow.
Okay, that would be helpful. Obviously, it's helpful to us if we can get the right ones and because we spend time on it, but that's helpful to know. And I understand that happens. And I have another question about the September 19th meeting. It took more than 2 weeks for the audio of that meeting to be posted on the website. I guess I wanted to know, my experience is that it usually takes much less time for our recordings to get posted, usually like 2 days or so, as opposed to 2 weeks. So I didn't know whether there's something that's changed or whether that was just an anomaly.
Well, what happens is typically is that it has to go through 3 hands before it's actually updated. And so with Jerry taking the recording, has to be downloaded, then it has to be zipped up, and then it needs to be posted to YouTube. So it's just a process. And so we're just trying to keep up with all the other election, all the items.
It was my oversight. Edmund sent me to YouTube.
Can you hear Janet?
I cannot.
It was my oversight. Edmund sent me to YouTube and I was busy working on a project and I forgot that he sent me the link to put up until you
Okay.
said it. Then I was like, oh my God, he did send me that. So,
Okay, yeah, because I said it after someone came to me looking for it. So obviously it's helpful to have it up as soon as you can get it up. And thank you.
All right then, so we leave September 19 open, okay? Future meeting, November 8, 11 a.m. Election day. Remember, it used to be 11:30 with lunch. Now,
Now we should bring our own candy bars.
okay. So, any other things which the board wishes to say or talk or ask or whatever?
I
Otherwise,
bu-
we adjourn.
I
I
just,
just want to clarify, actually, is the board meeting intending to meet virtually on the 8th?
Good
Do
question.
you want to come in person or you want to do it with friendly Zoom?
well, I guess it depends on whether we need to
Yeah, I would,
gather materials from you, et cetera. Which we sometimes have done on election day in the past.
I would prefer being in my local spot on election day just for proximity to the precincts that are open.
Yeah, I think it's more useful to be out walking the precincts. Or checking on the voting sites the way we did on election day during the primary.
Well, usually we've been checking on the voting sites, then meeting midday and comparing notes and then going back to the voting sites. But I'm good. I'm good either way, whether we do it
Okay, we do it with Zoom.
remotely or in
We would
person.
do it with Zoom. That's okay. Lisa will send the information, but put it in your calendar, November 8th, okay?
Yes.
A question about November 21. I believe that November 21, which is our typical meeting,
Yes,
it is also noticed as a canvas day. So I didn't know if we're going to have a business meeting in November, or if basically we're going to not have our business meeting until we're done with the canvas.
Well, for right now, I suggest you keep it as a placeholder
Okay.
because it may be a day that the staff needs to go ahead and do prep work for additional canvas. We
Okay.
can keep our regular schedule.
okay, thank you,
Okay.
Kathleen. So don't remember the executive meeting after this, which you have, I'm sure you have all the Zoom information.
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't
Yeah.
believe so.
Well,
I will text.
It came out after 3 o'clock, another one from Brenda.
yeah, 3:15, she was to send you an email with the link.
Yeah.
Right. And is that the only executive session that we're having today is the one
Yes.
from Brenda?
Correct.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And we're
And
not
we're
waiting.
going-
We're going to
we're
do it right
going-
after this meeting, right?
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
Regardless of the time that she included.
right.
Okay.
And the executive session will be for personnel and for a confidential voter request.
Okay.
We will give everybody 10 minutes break. 15 minutes before we
Okay,
go to the
so-
other one.
We meet at approximately 4:32.
Whatever, exactly, not exactly, but sometime around that time.
Okay,
Okay.
10 minutes. All right, then I move we adjourn this meeting to get ready for the next.
All right, second.
Those in favor of it? Oh, okay,
Aye.
thank you. See you later.
Thank you.
All right.
Ciao.
More